The USS Kearsarge just lost its entire air defense perimeter in a coordinated drone swarm. Say that out loud. Let it sink in. This wasn't a malfunction. This was a precise tactical strike that successfully bypassed multi-layered defenses designed to be impenetrable. We are talking about Iranian suicide drones, a variant of their Shahed 136 platform, each costing less than $50,000. These aren't just one-way attack drones. They are now proven to deliver targeted, high-explosive payloads with pinpoint accuracy directly into a carrier strike group's inner defense ring. One of these low-cost systems specifically compromised a critical AN-SPY-1D radar array on an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. That array is the eye of the Aegis combat system, the backbone of naval air defense, a piece of equipment that takes years to fabricate and months to integrate into the fleet. Its operational cost, including development and maintenance, runs into the hundreds of millions per unit. Its failure creates an immediate, unquantifiable vulnerability across an entire battle group. This is the part no one is saying out loud. Before we dive deeper into the strategic silence surrounding this unprecedented event, huge thanks for being here. Your support truly keeps this channel running. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Hit like, turn on notifications. It genuinely helps us deliver this unfiltered analysis. Now let's get into it. What we know is terrifyingly clear. Iranian naval and air forces executed a multi-axis attack that overwhelmed what was thought to be an impenetrable Western layered air defense. We know the drone swarms were complemented by a volley of anti-ship ballistic missiles that forced defensive systems to engage multiple threats simultaneously. We know that the specific operational failure of a Phalanx CIWS system on a U.S. Navy vessel allowed a low-altitude cruise missile to pass through unimpeded. This system is designed as the absolute last line of defense, a rapid-fire close-in weapon meant to shred anything that penetrates the outer layers. Its failure means the entire defensive architecture was either saturated or fundamentally deceived. We know that the Persian Gulf shipping lanes are now demonstrably more dangerous, not just theoretically, but demonstrably vulnerable. The visual evidence from satellite imagery showing distress signals and fire control activity is definitive. 9. What we don't know is a gaping chasm of strategic uncertainty. We don't know the exact extent of human casualties, a silence that is deafening given the scale of the attack. We don't know the full strategic intent behind Tehran's move beyond the immediate tactical victory. Was this a test of capabilities, a show of force, or a calculated escalation designed to rewrite the rules of engagement in one of the world's most critical choke points? We don't know how many more of these advanced Shahed variants Iran has ready to deploy and what specific modifications they have made to defeat next-generation countermeasures. We don't know the precise intelligence failure that led to this lack of preparedness, a failure that cuts across multiple agencies and billions in investment. And we absolutely do not know the long-term impact on global maritime insurance rates or the confidence of shipping companies operating through the Strait of Hormuz. Most people think that technological superiority guarantees unchallenged naval dominance in a contested waterway like the Strait of Hormuz. The reality is that swarm tactics employing cheap asymmetric weapons platforms can completely negate that high-tech advantage in congested choke points. And here's why that gap is the most dangerous thing happening right now. Western navies are designed around defending against peer threats or conventional state actors with similar operating profiles. They are not built for or economically sustainable against a continuous barrage of thousands of cheap expendable drones and missiles, each costing a fraction of a single interceptor. The cost-exchange ratio fundamentally breaks the defender's ability to maintain a persistent presence without bleeding resources dry. This single engagement has shattered the long-held assumption that a single Aegis destroyer or carrier air wing can project overwhelming power without proportional vulnerability in narrow waters. It's not about the size of the hammer, it's about the speed and number of nails. And stay with me. Now watch the dominoes fall. The first domino is the immediate tactical loss of confidence in Western naval power projection. This isn't just about a damaged ship, it's about the psychological impact on every captain in that fleet. The second domino is a direct emboldening of non-state actors and rival powers. They now have a live-fire demonstration that the most advanced naval forces on Earth can be penetrated by relatively unsophisticated but numerous threats. The third domino is the inevitable re-evaluation of global maritime security and the cost of doing business. Shipping insurance premiums through the Strait of Hormuz will skyrocket, immediately choking global oil supplies and sending shockwaves through economies reliant on those tankers. The fourth domino is a strategic pivot by regional allies who have long relied on U.S. naval protection. They will begin to diversify their security partners or seek de-escalation with Iran directly, because the promise of protection now carries a tangible asterisk. The fifth domino is a direct challenge to the U.S. military's global posture, forcing a withdrawal or reallocation of forces from other critical theaters to address this new existential vulnerability. What was the true strategic cost of that silence surrounding this incident? And let me be precise. The historical parallel for this level of asymmetric naval shock isn't World War II battleships. It's the attack on the USS Cole in 2000. That incident involved a small suicide boat loaded with explosives causing a massive hole in the side of a modern destroyer. It exposed a fundamental vulnerability to low-tech, high-impact asymmetric attacks even when operating at a high state of readiness. The Cole incident forced a complete overhaul of naval force protection doctrine, forcing ships to stand off from small vessels and implement new defensive measures. What we have seen this week is that the lessons learned from Cole have not scaled to meet the current swarm threat. The mechanism is similar, a small, cheap platform delivering a disproportionate blow, but the scale of the threat has multiplied from one suicide boat to dozens of coordinated drones and missiles, operating simultaneously. The political mechanism is also mirrored, the immediate calls for retaliation juxtaposed with the complex strategic calculations of escalation versus restraint. Now understand what this means for the cost equation. A single SM-6 interceptor missile fired from a U.S. Navy warship costs approximately $4 million. A single CRAM missile for point defense costs over $1 million. The Iranian Shahed drone that delivered a disabling blow costs under $50,000. This is not a sustainable exchange rate. To defend against a swarm of 20 drones and 10 anti-ship missiles, you could spend upwards of $50 to $100 million on interceptors in minutes, while the attacker spends less than $1 million. Over time, this economic grind is physically debilitating for the defending force. You run out of expensive interceptors long before the attacker runs out of cheap drones. This mathematical reality creates a strategic dilemma where defense becomes economically impossible, a slow bleed that makes even a tactical victory for the defender a strategic defeat. Who truly understands the implications of that one engagement? And the international community is watching this with an intensity we haven't seen in decades. China, for example, is specifically calculating how this Iranian success validates their own anti-access area denial A2AD strategies, particularly concerning Taiwan. Beijing has invested heavily in asymmetric drone and missile technology designed to deny access to advanced U.S. naval forces in the narrow waters of the South China Sea. This incident provides real-world data points on the effectiveness of swarming tactics against layered air defenses. It informs their targeting algorithms, their drone manufacturing priorities, and their naval doctrine for challenging global maritime hegemonies. For Beijing, this is not just an event in the Middle East. This is a live-fire laboratory demonstrating the potential for low-cost denial of access against superior firepower. The Gulf states are also watching intensely, questioning the long-term viability of their own security guarantees and perhaps accelerating their own indigenous defense capabilities or diversifying their strategic partnerships away from an over-reliance on a single protector. Here's what that tells you. There are two paths laid out after this Hormuz blitz. Path 1 is an immediate, overwhelming retaliatory strike. The morning after would see global oil prices instantly surge past $150 a barrel as the Strait of Hormuz is rendered a war zone. The Iranian government would immediately rally its population around a narrative of national defense against an aggressor, solidifying their hardline stance and potentially sparking a wider regional conflict engulfing multiple proxy forces. American president would face immense pressure to address Congress on the human cost of a war that would likely drag on for years with no clear exit strategy. Alliances across Europe and Asia would be strained as they face the economic fallout and the risk of global instability. Enrichaugen Path 2 is a strategic de-escalation and a complete re-evaluation of naval doctrine. The morning after would involve intense back-channel diplomacy from Washington, trying to manage the narrative and prevent further Iranian aggression through economic pressure and multilateral negotiations. Oil prices would remain volatile but avoid the catastrophic spike of direct conflict. The Iranian government would declare a monumental victory to its people, demonstrating their ability to confront and deter the world's most powerful navy, changing the regional power balance forever. The American president would face intense domestic criticism for a perceived weakness and a failure to protect U.S. assets and personnel. Alliances would remain intact, but with a palpable sense of unease and a desperate need for a new defense paradigm that addresses the demonstrated vulnerabilities. The silence from official channels is itself a strategic maneuver, a desperate attempt to contain the psychological fallout of this specific tactical failure. That radar system took 11 years to develop, and there is no replacement in the supply chain. The cost is not just measured in metal and systems, but in strategic deterrence. One side has now demonstrated a gut feeling about asymmetric warfare. The other has been forced to rethink its entire strategy in the face of a stark new reality.